This was also the week when the US military got a pep talk from their Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and Commander-in-Chief, President Donald Trump. And no, it did not disappoint. Indeed, if only Donald's mate Putin had known, he could have walked into New York, as every general and admiral in the military had been commanded by presidential decree to attend the event in Quantico, Virginia. Now, as he left the White House to go there to see his generals, Trump set the tone, saying this.
I'm going to be meeting with generals and with admirals and with leaders, and if I don't like somebody, I'm going to fire him right on the spot.
He's going to sack any general he didn't like. This is the same man who dodged the Vietnam War, and his only experience of actual combat came during his appearances in divorce courts and bankruptcy courts in the USA. But even before he arrived, the military elite had to endure being harangued by Hegseth, whose impressive military credentials, well, they include him being an author, a television personality, right, and having risen to the dizzying heights of being a National Guard officer. Yeah, you got that right. We're talking Dad's Army here. Right, that National Guard, that's similar to the UK Army Reserve. None of them boys go out the weekend and play wars. Yeah, that's as far as he got. But taking a lead from his glorious leader, Trump, who has constantly referred to military men as looking straight out of central casting. These people are living in movies. Do you understand? Those of us who remember back the brilliant movie about Patton, right? And the Patton's great speech was exactly the same as this. There was a massive big flag behind them. This is what they're going on, these people. Now, Hegseth, he seemed more obsessed on how the military looked rather than how they fought.
And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male-level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes.
Now, this is a side note, but it's an important one, right? See his comment about it being like the broken window theory of policing? Well, that theory was popularized in this book, right? This book, The Tipping Point, by Malcolm Gladwell, right? I read this in 2020, I think it was. I don't think Hegseth has actually read too many books. But The Tipping Point itself and the broken windows theory, well, the idea of that goes back to work done by two guys called James Q. Wilson and George Killing 20 years previously in the 80s. Now, I hadn't made an educated guess, as I've said. Hegseth neither read the Gladwell book, nor has he followed up on subsequent research regarding this. Because if he had, he would know that theory of broken windows has been disproved and has been described as simplistic and not a true indicator of anything. But hey, this is Trumpian America, where actual facts and science take second place to alternative facts and pseudoscience. Do you remember him about the autism last week? That's all I'm going to say about it. That's all. That's just on the. That's all I'm saying about that. All right. Now, Hegseth went on to admonish the top brass in attendance for not only having the audacity to have beards, but also not being in top physical shape. And he's going to force them to pass not one but two PT tests yearly. Yeah, think about this. Seemingly men and women in their 60s who've spent their entire lives serving the US must still be able to do pull-ups. Well, obviously it's something that Hegseth himself, he demonstrated how good he was at it. Now, you may have noticed in the clips of him speaking, right, that the generals and admirals forced to listen to his bullshit, well, they showed their anger in the only way allowed, by remaining completely silent. Not one round of applause, not one hoo-ah, nothing. And when he built himself up to his big finish, right, where he was expecting a standing ovation, all he got was the obligatory standing to attention, and yet more sound of silence.
And you'll hear from him shortly. Move out and draw fire, because we are the War Department. Godspeed.
Room, attention.
But he was only a warm-up guy. Then it was time for the Commander-in-Chief, who believed he was the man to advise the brightest and the best. You can imagine his usual rambling nonsense.
Like what I called the Gulf of America, because to me it was always the Gulf of America. I could never understand. We have 92% of the frontage, and for years, actually 350 years, they were there before us. It was called the Gulf of Mexico. I just had this idea. I'm looking at a map, I'm saying, we have most of the frontage. Why is it Gulf of Mexico? Why isn't it the Gulf of America? And I made the change, and it went smoothly. I mean, we had a couple of fake news outlets that refused to make the change. And then one of them, AP, took us to court, and we won. And the judge, who was a somewhat liberal judge, said the name is the Gulf of America, because AP refused to call it the Gulf of America. They wrote, they're not a good outfit, by the way.
Here's the fact, people. Even the worst dictators and demagogues know it's essential to keep their army happy and on their side. Trump and Hegseth are so stupid and such narcissists, they seem ignorant of even this most basic requirement to stay in power. I'm not saying there's going to be a coup, but the Americans are good at coups. They've done a lot of coups in other countries. Who knows? We couldn't have an American coup. That would be fun, wouldn't it? Hey! Dream on.